Welcome to the Awakening Women podcast. I'm your host, Leanne Oaten, and former therapist with a background in counseling psychology. This podcast is for strong, high-achieving women who want more in their lives and relationships, who are ready to rise to the next level of growth, healing, and evolution. Nothing changes until you change. And when you change, everything else changes around you as a result. If you're done with feeling powerless within the chaotic and toxic dynamics in your relationship and don't even know where to begin with making changes, I've got you covered. I know you've tried everything, including counseling, watching hours of videos, and reading stacks of books on narcissism, and find that all it does is leave you feeling even more stuck and in the same place. None of these things work when you're living with a narcissistic spouse because the root causes of the symptoms are not being addressed. As with physical health, there is an emotional, physical, spiritual, and psychological component to healing and overcoming the problematic symptoms and pain you're facing every day in your life and relationship. If you're ready for a direct, no fluff, no nonsense approach to take you into your personal power and take back your life, you are in the right place. Let's get started with today's episode. An absolute bare minimum in any relationship is healthy and mature communication. If you can't talk openly about the good, bad, and ugly with a partner without them getting defensive, changing the topic, minimizing your feelings, running away, getting angry, or shutting down, you don't have a relationship, you have an arrangement that will never feel fulfilling and will be full of conflict, disconnection, and struggle forevermore. That is a thread that I wrote on the Instagram Threads app, and it got a lot of interaction because I think a lot of people resonated with let's get down to the basics of what is like a normal, healthier relationship. There is no relationship if you can't bring up things that you don't like, that if you can't be who you really are. And even more so, when we get into this, they don't want to talk about the relationship. They don't want to talk about anything that means that they have to grow. That means that they have to look at themselves, that they have to see they have flaws, to be able to tolerate the shame that they have inside when you bring up their shortcomings and mistakes. They have to be the one to change that, because this isn't even a conversation about communication anymore. When you're dealing with a narcissistic person that is abusive, we're not having a conversation about conflict resolution, because they are the ones most of the time causing the conflict. Of course, there's, times that could be happening on the other side. But primarily, if you look at the pattern in your relationship, you will be able to see that the main theme of all of the conflicts and problems that happen in your life, in your home, in the relationship, the things that you have conflicts about and fights about, and those long hours long circular fights that go nowhere, what are they usually about? Ask yourself, what is the main thread, the common theme of these long ass fights that go nowhere except leave you feeling an absolute hot mess? And you will be able to trace it back to them, right? They are the cause of the majority of what goes on. And even if they aren't, so let's say even if you do have flaws, we all do, maybe you overreact to something, or maybe you say something not nice, or maybe you do or say something inconsiderate, or do something that they don't like. Okay, so a mature person will choose, do I make this a thing, or do I bring it up, or do I find a way to express it in an adult way? And you have a conversation about it and you move on. Nobody's feeling hurt and destroyed from it because it was just a clear conversation. You cleared it up quickly and were able to move on. That's different. But when you're dealing with this type of cyclic abuse and the covert manipulation and the gaslighting and the ongoing mental twisting of everything, this isn't about you learning how to do conflict better. This isn't even about you learning how to speak better, or to be a better communicator, or to use more I statements, or to speak in a calm tone that is allows him to be receptive to what you're saying. You'll notice that there is never a good time and there's never a good tone and you never say it right. There is never a good time to bring this up, whether it's in the car on the way somewhere, whether it's interrupting their TV session at the end of the day, whether it's trying to talk to them at work, whether it's trying to talk to them anytime. There's never going to be a good time. And no matter how you bring it up, it's never going to be the right tone, the right way, saying it the right way. And so it's just another block that they put toward being able to take accountability. You can only have communication when there's two people participating in the back and forth dialogue properly, like where they're actually listening. There's a listening and a speaking. There's an ebb and a flow where one is feeling heard and then the other is feeling heard, and you're working toward resolution and understanding both people's perception of the problem. But again, this is not happening when you're in a relationship with someone who has high narcissistic traits or NPD. You'll notice that you can never have a calm, collaborative conversation about things. You can't have a calm conversation about behaviors that you don't like. And the things that they don't like about you is going to come out in nasty ways, or it's going to come out in passive aggressive ways, or side remarks, or cutting remarks, or jabs, instead of them coming out and being clear with you about maybe something that you did. They won't bring it up that way. And another interesting thing about this is, and I've heard this from a lot of women, that, when you're in a fight or conversation, you're trying to bring up something he did, typically, right? That's usually what's starting these fights. And again, they're not listening, they're not receptive, but they will start bringing out, what about what you did? What about you did this? You do it too. You're not perfect. Remember this time you did this? Oh my God, I can't believe you're bringing this up when you do this. And then they just start throwing these darts everywhere in all these directions. So you're trying to, stand up for yourself. You're trying to clarify. You're trying to explain. And you maybe already talked about a lot of these things already. And so then you can, or they might say you're not perfect either. You have some things that you need to work on, or you hurt me too. Like, I feel like you're abusive too. And you might be like, okay, well, why don't you tell me what those things are? Like, can you be specific? And most of the time, they won't be able to come up with an example. Like, try that. I'd love to know. Let me know how that goes, because I have this theory that, that's because they know that, no, actually you aren't the problem, right? Because they might be able to pull something out of their butts, or it might be some little stupid minuscule thing that's like, what? Like, you have a problem with that? Why didn't you just bring it up, right? But instead they want to inflate it to divert the topic that you are trying to address. So if this resonates, actually send me a DM on my Awakening Women official Instagram. I would love to know, because this is something I've seen enough. I haven't really heard about this particular thing, but I wonder about, how it plays in this particular dynamic. And it's just another way for you to be aware when this is happening, to realize this is a diversion tactic to get me off this topic, to start arguing about me, so then they don't have to take accountability. You're just sent off on this crazy whirlwind wild goose chase. Before you know it, you're talking about you and something you did 10 years ago, or you're trying to get them to explain, like, okay, what did I do? What have I done? Go ahead, like, write me a list. By all means, write me a list. But just, like, I want you to hear me out. Like, I'm fine. If you have things you want to bring up to me in an adult way and you want to write a list, sure, let's talk about them. But they are not really wanting to do that. So that goes to show you that that tactic is fully working for them, and it helps them to avoid accountability, right? It's a way to divert the focus off of them, and it works quite well, because most of the time we're being conscientious and we want to grow and learn and do better, right? We're with someone that isn't interested in that. And so it just turns into this whirlwind circular fight. And these fights are horrible, ladies, for our adrenal system, for our heart health, because it jolts the cortisol, it spikes our cortisol, it raises our blood pressure. But we have to realize that this type of conflict is not normal. Your body is going to start showing signs of problems because of the ongoing stress and the spikes in cortisol. And as women, we are extra sensitive to this because we are more at risk for heart disease as women, just in general, but especially when we get into our 40s and into perimenopause and menopausal years, 40s, 50s. We want to make sure we have really dialed in our lifestyle factors, that we're not living in a stressful, suffocating, toxic home life relationship situation, because we are more at risk for things going wrong as we reach our 40s and beyond. And if you're in a relationship like this and going through perimenopause or the hormonal shifts, you're going to have a hard time with your health. Things like losing all of your hair and irregular periods or heavy periods or anything to do with menstrual issues and migraines and all of that stuff, because this conflict is so stressful. It's not normal conflict that comes up and it's resolved and everybody can just kind of move on again. It's not like that. The type of conflict is caused by one side not wanting to resolve it. If you come into a conflict with two people wanting resolution, it's a hell of a lot different of a thing than you trying to force someone else's perception. When you're trying to change their perspective, you're trying to change their psychology and their personalities and their way of seeing it, it's not going to happen. And that is stressful. It's like beating your head into a brick wall. And that really just, like I said, it raises our cortisol in these drastic peaks of cortisol, drastic surges of cortisol. And if you haven't already, you will start to experience some pretty serious health implications just from that ongoing stress. So to wrap this up, this conflict resolution, speaking properly, it doesn't pertain to these relationships because you're not dealing with someone who has the same interest. So if you're ready to break this cycle and you want to know, how do I get out of this dance, this horrible nightmare that I'm living in that I can't seem to find my way out of, today is day 3 of the Own Your Power Bootcamp that I have running right now. And it's not too late to dive in. You can jump in and catch up and watch all 3 videos at once. I have them all set on a binge watch page where you can see all of them today or when you have a moment the next few days. They're not staying up forever. So if you want to join that and then come into our Facebook group where we're having discussions and I'm doing additional live streaming in the group that you can come and interact with, then head to the link in the show notes. Just scroll down on this episode and you should see the show notes, and you can sign up to participate in the bootcamp before it closes. So once again, remember that communication requires 2 people wanting to resolve the issues, wanting to self-reflect, both people listening to each other, trying to understand, and both people speaking, trying to be, heard, trying to express. And there's a big difference between listening, hearing, and actually you're listening, you're hearing it, but you're not actually taking it in. That's what's not happening with these men, is they're not fully taking in what you're saying and feeling bad about it or feeling empathetic about it, at least not enough to change it, because it will just keep happening. And you keep having the same discussions about the behaviors that need to change, but they don't change because it's deeply ingrained, whether it's conscious or not. Nobody can really say for sure how much of what they do is conscious or unconscious. It doesn't really matter, and it doesn't serve anyone to go down that rabbit hole. What you need to do is focus on, what is this doing to me? What is this like living in this situation? What is this doing to my health, my mind, my life, my relationships, my career, all of it? What is it doing to me? It doesn't matter, any of the other stuff doesn't matter. It's, what is it doing to me? All right, so that closes up this episode, and I'll see you inside the boot camp. Take care. Thanks so much for tuning in to this edition of the Awakening Women podcast. If you love this episode, please take a moment to share it and leave a 5-star rating and review. If you're ready to take your next step, head to the link in the show notes to sign up for my latest free class. Also, be sure to follow me over on Instagram at Awakening Women Official and join the conversation. Thanks so much for tuning in, and I'll catch you again in the next episode. Take care of yourself in the meantime, and I'll see you online.